Okay, today we will see how to use an editor like Vim and Emacs, some things about Nano, to write some scripts or edit some files within the terminal. So the benefits of these editors, Emacs, Vim and Nano, is that they can write within the terminal without the need to open a separate window. This is a benefit because when we work in the servers, we don't have this window environment, so we cannot open a separate window for the applications. Therefore, we need something that will run within the terminal. Now these editors, VI or Vim, these are two editors, and Emacs, are specified for the server, but also I recommend you to start using them locally as well. So for example, I use Emacs in my everyday life, and so I use it also in everyday life locally and not in the server. So let's go here. Now I will show you different ways to open a file. If I will use Nano and this file, for example, I can open this file. I can navigate with arrows. Remember, when we open something in the terminal, we don't use the mouse any longer. So these are just the arrows here, and then here in Nano there is some help. When you see this caret symbol, this one, it's the control. So Control X, it will go out. Control O, it will write. If I will do a change, so for example here I put an empty space. Control O, I will write this change to this file. If I undo it, if I delete the space, Control O, it will write the change to the file. Now, if I do a change and I press Control X to exit without having saved this change, it will ask save modified buffer, and then we usually press yes or no. So Y, it will first write and then exit. Again I open it, I delete this, Control X, yes, right. So Nano is quite comfortable, and actually there is in every computer by default, but it's not so good editor for code. For example, if I open this R code, it does help very well the editing and the variables and so on. You will see that later when we will use Emacs. But it's not a very bad editor to do your work. I don't prefer it usually. I have it only for very simple files, or when Emacs is not installed or Vim is not installed. Vim is usually installed actually. But usually I use Emacs. So let's see some examples with Emacs. So to open Emacs, we write the command Emacs here, and then -NW, which means no window, because otherwise it will open a separate window, but we don't need that. And then a file name. So if the file exists like that, like this, it will just open the file. Okay, so now I have opened this file with Emacs. This is a simple file, so here are these options that you see: file, edit, option, buffer, tools, help. It's for a simple file. I will show you how to use them at some point. I cannot use the mouse, okay? And this file now, or buffer in Emacs terminology, is opened within the terminal. So I don't see the terminal any longer, but instead I see the file. Now to navigate, I can use the arrows like nano, but Emacs has also some other ways to navigate. So for example, if I go to go one line down, I can press Ctrl N. Moving along the lines. And Control N I go one line down, and Control P I go to the previous line. Now Control A I go to the beginning of the line, Control E I go to the end of the line. Yeah, I must specify here that with Control P and Control N I don't move to the actual next line, but what I see on the terminal. Because as you see here, we saw that also with less and more, the line is wrapped because it does not fit the line. There are commands in Emacs that can show us every line separately in a single line, but this is the default behavior, what we see here. So Control N I move to the next visible line, say it like that, and Control P to the previous visible line, Control A to the actual beginning of the line, and Control E to the actual end of the line. If you want to type something, you type normally, Enter, and I type something, and then backspace to delete it. But there are other ways to delete things. So for example, here if I want to delete the whole line, Control K, I delete the whole line. Now if you want to navigate a bit faster, if you want to, so I showed the Control N and Control P. I can use the Control Left to go one character forward, and Control P and Control B to go one character backwards. So Control F, Control B. If I want to navigate between words, I can use instead of the Control, the Alt. So Alt F, I go to the next word, and here the word is specified either by a white space or by special characters like dot. For example, here I move to dot, and then I go to the empty space, and then dot and space, and so on. And if I want to do that backwards, I use Alt and B. Okay. If I press Alt, Shift, and the greater symbol, so this one, the greater than, I go to the end of the buffer, and Alt, Shift, and the smaller than, I go to the beginning of the buffer. This is quite useful because often we want to see what is in the end or what is in the beginning, so I can use these symbols to navigate fast. If I want to search for something, I can use the Control S, and it's waiting for something, let's say 9.59 or 57. So it highlights and goes to the first occurrence of the finding. If I want to go to the next one, I press Control S, Control S, Control S, Control S, go to the next one. If I want to search backwards, I press Control R. Control S forward search, Control R backward search. Okay. So Emacs allows us to open multiple windows. So to open a second buffer, I press Control X and O. Control X and 2 to split this window in two parts horizontally. So there will be an upper buffer and then a bottom buffer. So this will be Control X and 2. By default, it opens the same buffer that was previously open, but I can use the Control F, Control X, let's see, Control X, Control F, Control X, Control F to open another file. Let's see what else I can open here. quiz2.r. So now in the bottom buffer I have opened an R script, and in the top I have opened some data. I can navigate through the buffers with the Control X and O. So now O means other, so it will navigate to the different buffers. Now see here the difference. This is a simple text file, and you see the menu here on the top. This is an R script, and since I have installed some special package that we will see later on called ESS, emacs peak statistics, it recognizes that this is an R script, and that's why the menu here has changed. If I want to delete this, remove this upper buffer here, since the cursor is on the upper buffer, I press Control X and 0. Now I have only the bottom one. If I want to split now this vertically, so to have one buffer here and another buffer on the right, I can press Control X 3. Of course, these two can be combined, so if I'm here in the first one and press Control X2, it will split this into separate windows. And of course, I navigate with Control O, Control XO, Control XO, and I can open whatever I want in a buffer, like data.csv. If I want to keep only one buffer, let's say this one, Control X and 1, I will keep this one. And if I want to exit, Control X, Control C, Control X, Control C, I will exit, but it asks if I want to save the file. I press no, exit anyway, yes, exit. So if I open it again, I can press Control X, Control F to open another one. Okay. Now, quite often we want to interact with the terminal in the sense that we want to copy some information and put it here. For example, let's see, in this R script I want to load this data, but I don't know the name of the file. So the simplest solution would be to copy it from the terminal. Instead of closing completely the R script, this file that's open in Emacs, I can send this file to the background. So in the terminal there is a concept of the background and the foreground. I send something to the background means that I keep it open, but I don't see that. So it's somewhere there, but I don't see that. And to do that, I use the Control Z. So with Control Z, this the terminal, the Emacs went to the background, and I have access to the terminal now. So I can do ls, copy something, and then to bring back to the background, I run first the command jobs, and I see that there is one stop job here that it's in the background one. I can send multiple things to the background, and this will be in the background one, another one will be in the background two, and so on. So to bring it back, I use the command FG from foreground, and then the number that is inside this square parenthesis. So I have copied If I want to paste it, for example here, I can normally paste it like that. Okay? So this is the easiest way to interact with between the script that you are writing and the terminal. Control Z, FG1. Control Z to the background. If I type jobs, I see the number here. If next to the number there is this plus, it means that it's the last thing that I sent to the background, and I can simply bring it to the foreground just by typing FG without the number. So with FG it will bring the last thing that went to the background, and usually, and this has a plus sign next to the number. Okay, now with Control Z I say that I don't close the file, it's still open, it's not saved, and I bring it back with FG. And if I want to save it in Emacs at least, Control X, Control S, I save it, and Control X, Control C, I go out. Now this is local in the computer, and of course I can do the same thing in the server. Go to Linux class, I go to my directory, and then Emacs, let's open some file here, this first script. Let's make a new one. I showed you how to open an existing file, but I can make a new one just by typing the name of the file that I want to create. Now, since this will be a bash script, I will use the suffix .sh. This is for myself. For Linux, the suffixes do not have any special meaning. So now I open the script. Actually, Emacs recognize that it's a shell script. So you see here the menu up here, it's for the shell scripts. And what I want you to know for a script, so what I'm going to do is to write some bash commands here and execute them. Of course, you know how to execute commands in the terminal, like ls, like make directory test2, and so on. Now, what you don't know is that you can write commands within a script also, and then execute the script, and whatever is inside there, it will be executed as well. And this I will show in the next video.